So I think the idea generally is, none of the components of the framework are in a way groundbreaking. It's just a way of looking at Apple Notes, maybe in a slightly different way. I think it gives it intention.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Basic AF. I'm Tom Anderson, and as always, joined by my co-host, good friend, Jeff Battersby. Hello, Jeff.
I'm late again, Tom, which is not a sentence you want to hear from some people.
Don't mind it from you, though.
I know, it works out all right from me. The girl you're dating in high school, not so much. For some reason, I thought we were recording a half an hour later today. So here I am running downstairs, half dressed, unbreakfasted, but plenty coffeeed up. So that'll keep me in good stead. But hello, Tom. Good to see you. How are you? How goes the delivery of 10 million MacBook Airs and iPads and pencils?
It went very well. The team did a really good job, and this was the first year I really was kind of hands-off with that whole process.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was kind of strange, but I think we have 60 sets of devices left, give or take, at this point.
And how many overall, how many new students this
we ordered 1,000 sets, and not all students participate, though the vast majority do, into our mobile learning program at work. So everyone is glad to be through most of that, especially the ones that were more hands-on. It's a lot of work. Go probably 8 different distributions for those at this point, smaller ones, and then a big one on move-in day. So
awesome.
Well done by the team.
Yeah, excellent. And you're now using Kanji as your...
Yes. Yeah. We're a year and a half into that, but just finished up like the complete migration back end of June.
Awesome.
And that's going very well. So we're very happy with that.
Excellent.
So, Jeff, this is episode 69 of this show. Show notes can be found at basicafshow.com/69. If you're a regular listener here, thanks for joining us again. If you're new, hey, thanks for giving us a shot, listening to us here. Hope you enjoy the show. If you do, be sure to give us a follow in your podcast app.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you can reach us at feedback@basicafshow.com. We're always happy to field questions, those of you that have them. And in the podcast app, you can still leave us a little voicemail message. Is that true? So, if you want to yell at us, we like yelling, so feel free to do that. And Tom, we have a guest this morning. One that I have been looking forward to having on the show for quite some time, and which is why I was late, because I was so excited. I got here at the wrong time. Matthias Hilse, who is the creator of Forever Notes. You may recall that we talked about Forever Notes a little bit ago, which is now the tool I use with Apple Notes, and I'm super grateful for this. So, Matthias, welcome, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure being here. I'm super stoked. So, what can I tell you about me? I'm a German guy who works in advertising. I'm originally graphic designer, creative director, art director. I'm freelancing for the past 20 years or something. And I live in Vienna, Austria now for the past 3 years.
How is that? That sounds like the land of Mozart. So you're in a great place.
It's full of culture and mountains. So it's an amazing it's an amazing city. I think it's been voted for several years as one of the top livable cities in the world, and you can feel why. It's great people. It's a great life here. I really enjoy it.
Amazing. My wife, daughter, and mother-in-law just came back from Prague, which is not obviously Austria, but another culturally significant city. And
yes, just a couple of hours away, and gorgeous city. I love Prague.
Amazing. Very amazing. So what took you to Vienna?
That is a very long story, but I moved here from Budapest, Hungary. I lived there for 25 years.
Wow.
Before moving here. And it just felt, after 25 years, I never thought I would live that long in Hungary. But after 25 years, it was time for me to get a little bit of, change of surrounding. Let's say this way. And Vienna is literally, it's a 2.5 hour car drive away from Budapest, so very close, and a very different world. And I'm very happy being here.
That's amazing. Excellent. So we're having you on because of Forever Notes. That's the reason that we're here. And Forever Notes was a system that you created to use with Apple Notes, and I presume it could work in some other note-taking systems as well, but specifically designed for, I would say, enhancing the capabilities of what I think is already an excellent note-taking app. That's Apple Notes. I have been using it for quite some time. And one of the things that I really love about Forever Notes is it makes the chaos and the craziness of collecting thousands of notes in Notes much easier to manage, organize, think about, use. So I think what we'd like to know, at least initially, is one, how did you come up with this idea? And what even made you think about building a system like this?
It was a path, I would say. And I think the first stepping stone was when Apple released the linking feature 2 years ago. And it just did something in my mind. I was thinking differently about Notes. I used Apple Notes for years and years. And I think back then, which was 2 years ago, I already had, 2,000 or more than 2,000 notes in my system. But it was, 95% chaos and I didn't even know about some of the notes that were in there. And it was a rediscovery, looking at these notes in the process of developing this framework. And the first thing I did, and that's what I remember, was doing the home note. I don't think I named it home note back then, and it didn't have a heavy asterisk. It was just like an index note. I think that's what I called it. And it was just a note linking to the most useful notes to me at that time. And that's how it got started. And everything else sort of came additionally to it over time. I think the next thing was hubs. Again, I didn't call them hubs. This was, just a way of how I linked, notes that, were on specific topics to my home node. And journal was actually the last one. And that came when I saw the YouTube video from Patrick from New Perspectives, which really, to me, sort of gave this idea of a complete system, and that was the moment when I started thinking about how do these individual elements, how can they maybe work together, and when my partner saw my setup, and that was last year in July, I think, he saw my setup on my phone, and he was like, "Oh my God, this looks amazing!" Just by he didn't understand it. Just by looking at it, it looked organized, and it looked he was saying, "I think you should publish this. I think you should share this with people." And that's where the idea came from. And only then I started sharing screenshots on Threads in August last year, just to see if there's, any type of interest. And then I started thinking about how to package it. And this is probably where my job comes in. And, thinking about, having a systematic approach to any project. So I try to come up with names and think about how this makes sense to someone who didn't evolve with it or didn't develop it. That's how it got started. It's really actually a very quite boring process. I was working with notes, and it sort of happened, while working on the notes.
Excellent. So you've used a couple of terms here. You've talked about home note, hubs, journal. Why don't you give us a broad overview of what makes Forever Notes, these little pieces of the puzzle that are very customizable, by the way. You give some good guidelines, but I can say, and I'll talk to you about it in just a second, but my experience with it is I use some of the features that you provide, some of the things that you talk about, and then have customized it in other ways to my specific needs, which is what makes it wonderful. But why don't you give us a little overview of the concepts behind
right. So I think the idea generally is, none of the components of the framework are in a way groundbreaking. It's just a way of looking at Apple Notes, maybe in a slightly different way. I think it gives it intention. I think this is why I think people also enjoy the framework, is because they look at Apple Notes in a different way. And instead of having, 3,000 individual notes, all of a sudden it becomes a system. And so there are several components to the framework. I probably should start with the heavy asterisk, but it's such a visual tool that it might be the most difficult to explain. But it's basically a visual icon that I use heavily in the framework in order to differentiate system notes from regular individual user notes. And so almost all notes in the Forever Notes system use the heavy asterisk in the title. And that's the first thing I ask people to set up. It's basically with a shortcut. You type 2 regular asterisks, and it transforms into a heavy asterisk symbol. And the main components are the home note. This is sort of like the easiest way to get into, starting the system and using it. We have hubs, which are basically centralized notes on specific topics. We've got collections, which are, collection of notes that are of similar type, yeah. So recipe notes, or in your case, I guess it's literature notes or cocktail notes. I think this is what you mentioned.
Look at you listen to our podcast.
I had to, obviously. All of them. I had to know who I'm talking to today. Yeah, and then there's a journal, which is an adaptation of Patrick's system, and sort of more tightly integrated into all the other components of the framework. And it basically it consists of daily notes, monthly notes, not weekly notes at the moment. I'm working on that. Monthly notes, quarterly notes, and a yearly note or an annual note, and all of these notes are linked up with each other, so you can jump from your today's note to a linked note that is inside a collection, or a linked hub note, and that creates a very different and new experience in Apple Notes. And of course, that is thanks to the ability to link notes with each other. That's sort of a broad overview of this system.
So we were introduced to, Tom and I, Forever Notes from another guest that we had, a guy named Bill McLean,
Bill,
who he talked about, I'd never heard about Forever Notes. Tom, he's a productivity guy. Is that really kind of what that's what he does. So Bill came on and he was talking about some of his workflows, and he mentioned this. He mentioned Forever Notes. And Tom will tell you that we finished recording that podcast episode, and I had been looking at the webpage, your webpage on while we were recording. And I went straight upstairs and started playing with it. It took me a little minute to get the initial concept in my head, but within probably about an hour, I think I texted Tom back and said, I'm going to play with this and see what I can do. And did start using it initially in exactly the same way that you had it set up, and then kind of tweaked it according to my needs. And you're correct. I have Home Note. I have writing, a writing hub, a theater hub, do, a lot of theater, a poetry hub, which once a year, typically in February, I do a poetry sprint, so every day I write some kind of poem in addition to other poetry that I write. Cocktails, I'm a bar program manager, and actually I share some of these notes with bartenders so that they have the ability to, see we're getting ready to roll out a new fall menu. So I've started to put together a bunch of cocktails for that so that I can then share that with my team. Books that I'm reading, and then presently movies. There are other breakdowns that I'm going to have eventually. But what this really did that Apple Notes didn't have in the past, what I had was either folders, or I had, individual notes that had no means of no way of linking them together. So as you said, I maybe put a note in Notes, and it might have been 5 years ago. And, it's at the bottom of the pile, the notes pile. And unless you scrolled through my over 1,000 notes, you didn't find that stuff. What this did was allowed me to group it. And what you're using is the tagging feature that's built into the Notes app, which this I've also confessed to Tom. In the past, tagging has been my nemesis because I've never been consistent in the way that I've tagged things. And what you did by creating Forever Notes was give me a framework to be very concise about what it was that I was working with, which is brilliant. It really is a really thoughtful way to use notes and to be able to organize your notes in such a way that it's not overwhelming. Again, 1,000 notes, it's impossible to keep track of those if you're looking at a list of 1,000 notes. So the tagging feature and being able to link to those tags is really where you found kind of it seems to me, where you found the main piece of this, that made it possible to be able to manage all your notes in a much more simplified, organized, thoughtful way. So did this come off of any other systems that you worked with before, or was this something that you came up with?
So tagging, I think, has been around for, a decade or two, I think. Probably even longer in specific industries. When I first heard about it, probably, I'm not 100% sure, but it was probably within either Mac OS, and tags, and Finder, or it might have been in some sort of software. Maybe it was WordPress or one of these things, I've gone through the same thing that you've gone through. Of course, in the beginning, the first feeling that people have when they start working with tags is that they want to tag every possible, everything. They want to tag everything, and they want to put, 15 different tags onto one note or onto one item, yes. Whether it's a folder or a document or anything. And I've struggled with that too. And so for me, obviously, if you remember, I'm using 4 types of tags in the framework. And I think the main one is the note type tag, which basically defines what type of note are you working on right now? Like, is this a document? Is this a meeting note? Is this a recipe for a cocktail recipe? And just by having sort of one extra layer of tags, it already divides all your notes into whether that's folders or collections or however you would like to look at this. It separates them and it divides them, and that already helps, I think, a lot of people think about notes in a different way.
Yeah, so it's really brilliant in terms of how that is, and as I said before, one of the place I originally came across tagging was when I first started publishing a blog back in the day. And I would tag my various blog posts with some kind of tag. But what I found is I was really inconsistent. I might say use one tag for some idea on one day. And then a couple weeks later, when I tagged it, I would tag it with something else that was similar to, but not the same as. And so I ended up with thousands of tags. Right. And the same thing was true of tagging in the Finder. I would tag things with too many different ones. And I think what you did, at least for me, is help me to see tagging as being a much more simplified process. So, for example, I'm currently directing a show called Bullshot Crummond. It's it's basically a send-up of 1920s and 30s detective film noir. So, kind of a mixture of Monty Python and the Pink Panther, and that kind of hilariousness. So I have that set up under a theater tag, and then more specifically under a bullshot tag for Bullshot Crummond, because I have that. And that really is the beauty of this system, is the ability to be able to be very thin at the top. For me, writing, theater, poetry, cocktails, books, movies. And then underneath that, maybe something more specific. So for cocktails, fall cocktails, spring cocktails, summer cocktails, winter cocktails, these things that you might have set up. And for poetry, I have multiple years worth of poetry that I can then go back to by year. So I've got the ability to look at February 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, all kind of in that buildup. And the simplicity of what you came up with is still brilliant to me.
It's really hard taking credit for any of it, to be honest, because the only thing that I've done is, sort of taken ideas, that existed before. Tagging is nothing new and actually existed in the app. But what I've done with it is simplify it. I really tried to simplify all of the aspects and not look at, because I've done this too often, look at software features. And we all know this bright shiny object syndrome. Is that what it's called? When a new feature all of a sudden changes our workflow, and I think this was the first time for me when I really looked at what is it that I actually want to achieve, and how can I achieve it. And this is digital minimalism, I guess. Looking at Apple Notes. It's an app that I've used for years, but never used it to its full potential. But how can I use Apple Notes in a way that works for me? And how can I think about it in a way that works for me? And these are just sort of, and that's why these components are so, in a way, generic. Whether you use hubs for areas like in Tiago Forte's Paris system, or whether you use them for projects, it really is up to you and depends on your workflow. And I think this is it's actually a struggle for me, because a lot of users and viewers on YouTube or on the course that I'm doing, they would love to know. They would love a lot more detailed setups from me. They want how exactly do you use this feature, or how is that component working for you? And I'm like, this is the beauty of it. It can work the way you think and the way you work. And
Yes.
this is a struggle for me to communicate to the community that it's up to you. It really is up to you how you use these components. And like as you say, for you, the tagging is something that maybe changed the way you looked at your notes. For other people, it was just the home note. The home note, like for a lot of people, the home note is like, it's dramatic because it gives a different way of, instead of having a list of hundreds of notes, it is one document, one view, one dashboard of notes that are most important to people. And that makes a difference. And so, for some people, for me, I think the journal is amazing. I use this is my biggest feature that I use, the journal, and not to journal, but to mark important things and link, documents. I have today on my today's note, I have a link to a document about our conversation here, and with some notes and thoughts and. I love that aspect, and so I think this is what made the framework in a way successful, is because it's so adaptable to user to needs of people. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. So you just mentioned that you have a course that you're running. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, to be honest, last year when I launched the website, originally that was my plan. Like, I'm giving people the documentation. I write down how I set it up, how to use it, how to get started with it. And that was it. And then I was, like, maybe I should produce a video about it. And so I did one video, and then I did a setup series, and that is on YouTube, and it's free to watch. And then the beginning of the year, I didn't do much, to be honest. I was traveling a lot, and I was sort of just answering messages on YouTube from people who watched who had questions. And some of the questions were setup questions, beginner questions. And I felt like there is a need for people to have sort of the setup in one session, kind of like what you did. You sit down for an hour, you go through the documentation, you set it up yourself, and that's it. And I assume this was already with all the tutorial videos on YouTube, and not just the written documentation. But I felt like that there's a market for this type of course, and so that's basically what I did in July. I created new videos. I created a whole course of how to set up the Forever Notes framework in one afternoon. And for some people, it's an hour. For other people, it might be 3 hours. But that's what it is.
Okay, excellent. And that you started publishing that when and where? Where can people find that Forever Notes course?
I started on 1st of August. That's when we launched. There was a pre-launch happening sort of end of July. And then I launched on August 1st. And it's been very successful, I have to say. I'm very pleased with it. And I think also users who took the course or who purchased the course are very satisfied. You can go to myforevernotes.com/workshop to learn more about it. But again, as I mentioned, the framework is free. You can watch all the YouTube videos. You can read the documentation. That's free. So it really is, it's, if you have no time and money lying around, then throw it at the workshop.
I think if you look behind me, I have tons of money. Like
I see it.
Yeah. I don't. Please point to it. And that's I think that is one of the keys. You're exactly correct. The free portion of what you've provided, the basic layout, the very good documentation, and I'll also add a very responsive user group that you have.
Yes,
there's a community
on the forum.
Yeah, built behind this. That's excellent. From all that, you can definitely set this up, if you want to give yourself the time to do it. And it did take me initially probably an hour to go through your documentation, the existing documentation, and then to customize it in the way that I needed to use it. Probably another hour, and then going through 1,000 notes and tagging those, which a couple of notes about this. One of the things that Apple doesn't do very well in Notes right now is allow you to link directly to folders. Correct?
Right.
That is a weakness in their system. So I was trying to figure out a way to do that because I had a bunch of folders, and you can do it via AppleScript. There's a way, via not AppleScript.
Shortcuts.
Yes, you could do it via AppleScript, but during shortcuts, correct. And that is
I've just published a video last week. I don't know if you've seen it, but about that.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's excellent, because that is a piece of the puzzle that Apple needs to sort out, I think. That, and I've complained to Tom too, that when you tag something, say, I find a web page that I want to tag, you cannot put the tag. You can put the tag in there, but then you have to go in the note and then initiate the tag. It drives me crazy.
I can only assume it's related to that Apple Notes is based on rich text format, and tags are not sort of in some sort of. I'm not a programmer, but it's not an object really. But it's just a piece of text, a couple of characters, and when the tag only becomes a tag once you're in Notes. I also think it's tragic that doesn't work when you capture.
Tragic's a good word.
Right.
It's a hassle is what it comes down to. It really is. It makes it makes their tagging system incomplete, but it's not a weakness in the Forever Note system. It's a weakness in the way that Apple implements those features.
It's still
so I have a question
current
for
OSs too, the new OSs like 26s.
It doesn't
no
work.
change there.
Okay. Nothing on the betas is. I'm all betaed up. Yeah, nothing.
Did you file
nothing has
feedback?
changed. I probably should do that. I haven't done that yet.
File. Yeah.
I
don't expect much, but at least you can say you did it.
Yeah, well, how that works is certainly another story. I tell you, Matthias, that yesterday I was in CarPlay. It wanted to play music by a particular band, and so I went into Apple Music. I clicked the little search thing, which brings up Siri, and I wanted to play the band TV on the Radio. And I still haven't filed this. I was a little salty about it yesterday. And so I said, play music by TV on the radio. I'm sorry, I can't do that while you're driving. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see TV on the radio. Mm-hmm. I want you to play TV on the radio. So anyway, all that to say that, I'm going to file that. But sometimes, things we wish for don't always come out the way that you expect them to.
I can't imagine how much feedback they get to have to sort
probably a lot.
Oh my gosh.
It has to be.
Significant.
It has to just be so much. Because I've done a handful, but I don't respect or expect replies or anything like that. But maybe we'll get lucky and see some of those.
You know what I'm impressed by, Tom, is that you do when you through your work when you submit feedback, you actually get pretty direct responses because you have access to engineers. So that's a good thing. But Matthias, what would it be that you would hope for that you think would be good additions to the Notes app that would enhance Forever Notes?
So obviously, a lot of people, including myself, would hope for full Markdown support. Creating a heading or other formatting within writing while writing the text would be very helpful, I think, and would be a great addition. We would have to adapt, how the heavy asterisk is being created a little bit, but that's an easy fix on my side. I think the other one that I wish for was how linking works within the Apple ecosystem. I wish we could link easier between Apple Notes and Mail and reminders and all of this. It is possible, but it's clunky and difficult, and people are having. I mean, I'm having this discussion on the forum with some people, some users. The link's working on the Mac for them, but then it doesn't work on the iPad, and they have to change the shortcut a little bit. For other people, it works perfectly fine. And these are like little inconsistencies, and they make it difficult for users. And I wish Apple would do a little bit, would be better on that. Like copy, click to copy a link to a note. It's possible, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of integration, and like you said, it's clear in what I just said a few moments ago about tagging and an article that was more system related than specific to Apple Notes would be a good thing. Linking to folders to me seems like something that.
Or if we're talking about it, of course, it would be great if we would be able to, because I think this feature of being able to or the integration of links across different apps within Apple, if that would be easier, it would also, make the setup of the Forever Notes framework easier, because, it would work maybe with shortcuts. I could pre-link the notes and give out a whole system. You don't have to take a course to set it up. You could just copy paste a folder or import a folder of notes, and you would have the whole system set up. That, of course, would make a lot of people's lives a lot easier. We'll see if we get there.
I think I did when I set this up originally, because I did have a lot of folders. I think I'd have to go back and think about what I did now to do this, but I was able to, it was smart folders. I was able to create smart folders from, and that's the thing that I used that allowed me to basically tag everything in a single group. Yeah. And that worked very well. So that was a way to be able to handle that, at least to be able to tag a large group of notes, items in that way. So, yeah, there's a lot that Apple could do that would help to enhance what it is that you've already done. But it absolutely amazing what it is that you've been able to take care of. What are some things that you hope to add in the future to the Forever Notes system?
So the next, I would call it add-on that is coming, it will be weekly notes. This has been sort of a request from people. For anyone wondering why there are no weekly notes included in the original setup, is because weekly notes don't actually line up year by year. So they don't line up with days and with month every year. So the 1st of January, might be a Tuesday, and week 1, and if it's on a Saturday, it's already, it's still week 1, but it could be a week. That's the funny thing, because the US system, and for some countries that don't use the ISO system, I think the 1st of January is always week 1. But for Europe, for example, if January 1st is on a Thursday or later, if it's before a Thursday, it's still week 53 of the previous year. So the 1st of January can be in week 53 of the previous year. And that makes weekly notes very tricky to organize and link up and work smoothly the same way that monthly notes do with daily notes. And that's why I didn't include them in the first in the original setup. And also, I do weekly planning in my task manager and not in notes. I do monthly planning and quarterly planning in notes, but the weekly planning I do in my actually task manager. And many people have asked me before, like, how to do project management in Apple Notes, and I always say, like, please don't use a separate task manager for that. It's for planning, I think it's great, but for task management, it's not. And so for me, it was not a big deal to not have weekly notes, but I'm creating an add-on so people will have the choice if they would like to have weekly notes. Then it's included in the shortcut, in the journal shortcut, to set it up.
All right, which task manager do you use?
So of course I've been everywhere, from Asana to ClickUp. I'm using a mix of Todoist and Things 3.
Okay.
So my brain works very interestingly. All my work tasks are in Todoist, but my chores are in Things.
Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful app. Things is.
And I wish I could use it for everything, but it's lacking some features that I need.
Yeah, they're very stubborn, or we'll say very selective about what they want to add to it, because people have screamed for things for years. Yeah, no pun intended there.
I think it's a brilliant strategy, because what they're saying is, like, we have an app that works perfectly. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to fall into the trap of, building one feature on top of the other and, ruining the beauty and the simplicity of the app. I think this is their. I don't know them. I think it's a German company, but I don't know them. But this is what I'm telling myself, why this app has not dramatically changed over the last 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. Did you ever use OmniFocus?
Yes, and there's of course, right. Of course, I love OmniFocus. I love the approach of OmniFocus. I love the review process that they built into the app. It's amazing. And I mean, like, I don't like to criticize. I wish they would work on their aesthetics a little bit. I don't like the aesthetics of the app at all. And it's very complex. It's a very complex app. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm not using it.
Yeah, and if you're a productivity nerd type, OmniFocus, you will get so lost into tinkering with your setup and your contexts and all of these different ways.
Custom views and
views, yes. And it is like a paradise for productivity tinkerers. But also the downside of that is you can make it so complex that it just becomes a mess. But that review process, brilliant. Like, that is what hooked me when I first started to use it. And I used that probably for, 5 or 6 years. And then I moved over to Things. I feel like we've taken a similar path here, Matthias, with productivity apps. I mean, we use Asana at work. I use reminders here and there because, this just works so well with Siri. So if I'm on the go with the watch or something, that's really simple to do. I have started doing most of my task management in Craft. So I'm a big Craft user. They just added tasks within the last 6 months, give or take. Or it might be a little longer than that. That might have been at the end of last year. And so I play with it a little bit. It's a different approach. Like with typical task managers, of course, you can set up your areas and you can set up your projects and then you add your tasks to it. This is very document centric. Yeah. So if I've got a note for, maybe I'm rolling out a new ticketing system or something at work, I would have a note for that. And then with Craft, very similar to the approach you've taken, with home notes, with forever notes, is I can have a project note and then I just link to other notes within the project. But I can also put my tasks right in there as well. And then the task itself can become a sub-page in the note. So as I'm working on that particular task, I can throw screenshots in there, take notes or whatever, because a lot of times, we're a support team. And so it's hard to keep, I'm just going to spend 4 hours on this particular topic. That doesn't work because you might get 25 minutes and then, hey, such and such's office needs something, or hey, can you help me take a look at this? And so I've just found that taking lots of notes as I'm working is a good way just to stay sane. So I'm not constantly starting over. So I've started there. But, we were talking before we started recording. I think one of the beautiful things with your framework is that it being a framework can be portable. And so we were talking, I saw in your recent newsletter, one of your community members has come up with it for Bear. Of course, Bear has linking. It's very tag oriented. It doesn't really have a folder system. You structure kind of folder like with tags. So that I think is great, because if somebody's not in notes, all of these concepts still apply.
Yes, I've heard from users they're using it in Obsidian. Where these parts of it, they set up in Obsidian, or I think even in Microsoft Notes somebody used it. And yes, it's the framework is based on features that are very popular in note-taking apps, whether it's tags or smart folders or folders, and linking. And so, it's tool agnostic in a way. The reason why I wish Apple Notes had a little bit more of Bear Notes. I think Bear Notes is a beautiful app. Mm-hmm. But I said, and I decided, I want to stick to the app that I've been using in the background for years. I don't want to have another app. And, Apple Notes is built in, it's free. Bear Notes, it's dirt cheap. I think it's like $20 a year or something. It's really, really cheap. And I think for some people, it's a great alternative. And yes, this user has set up basically a folder, I think a zip file, and you download it, and it's a folder, and you import it into Bear Notes, and at least some of the notes are linked up already. So it takes away that whole, especially for journal users, where that takes some time to link every day note to every other note of the journal system. So that's a huge gain for people of using Bear Notes.
Yeah, you'd mentioned proper Markdown for Apple Notes. Bear Notes, that's one of the things I really liked with it. When I spent maybe 18 months with Bear, but it exports many different ways and does a very nice job with that. And it is a beautiful app too. Like, it's kind of the equivalent of Things, but for note-taking, like kind of a minimalist approach, very clean.
It's fast. It's great. It's a great app. Yeah.
Have you used any of the Markdown that's in the new version of the OSs?
When I heard about it, I got excited for a moment.
For a moment.
Until I heard that it's only about, for importing and exporting.
Okay.
And not using it within the app. Of course, I had hope that maybe I could have a linked setup of the Forever Notes framework in a folder, all in Markdown format that can be imported as a whole. I've done hours of testing and it's not possible. And this is where the way links are handled in Apple Notes or within the Apple operating systems, that it's not possible. The moment you move a note out of one person's system, that link changes. It's not the same link anymore. It's not a central iCloud link, unfortunately.
And it's not universal, it sounds like.
No,
it sounds
universal,
like it's almost device specific.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Speaking of the new operating systems, are you running the betas? Are you playing with those at all?
I'm running the beta mainly because I would like at some point to update the course, because that's been recorded on the still current operating system. both on iOS as well as on macOS. And if I wanted to test it, I wanted to actually check out the import-export feature of Markdown. So I'm running it, yeah. I think the look is great.
That's what I was going to ask about. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Feels great to me too.
It feels elevated and more modern and fresher. And even though, I wonder where this is going. I do actually have an Apple Vision Pro. So I've seen glass before. It's more of a gadget than a tool. But at the moment, so I know where they're going. With the whole glass thing, but I wonder how it's evolving on the desktop and on iOS, and we'll see. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah. You an iPad user?
Yes, I have an iPad Mini, but usually I use that that's my sofa Mac.
Right. Now, it's supported? Have you tried the new windowing on the Mini, as small as the screen is, like the new windowing system?
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay. So reason I ask, so Jeff and I, from time to time, we'll send messages back and forth during the week. And so, of course, we've got our iPhone event coming up September 9th. So a little less than 2 weeks from the day that we record this.
10 days.
Yeah. And so we've got the iPhone 17 lineup. Now, the rumor is looking like next year, this long talked about foldable iPhone may come out. Mm-hmm. I know we've said before, Jeff, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but I know you're not too interested in that at this point, at least by what we've seen on the market so far. I've kind of held that perspective, although I will say I've started looking at the videos for the new Samsung, the Z Fold 7. That thing looks very intriguing. I don't know, Matthias, if you've looked at that or not.
Yeah.
And they've made it much thinner.
Yeah.
And the crease has become less noticeable, which I think is one of the big hangups. But kind of something that, I may just be trying to read too much into the tea leaves, as they say. But with that new windowing system working on the iPad Mini, if they come out with the foldable iPhone that supports that windowing system and an Apple Pencil of some sort, then that becomes almost like a pocket field notes carried around with you, always be able to write, do things with it. That becomes more intriguing. Not if it's $3,000. I've already spent.
It will be.
Right. I've already done the Vision Pro experience. I don't need to repeat that. But it could be compelling.
I think it's interesting. I usually don't try to go into the rumors. I don't know how many decades I've heard about an iPhone before the iPhone came out. At least 10. I think 10 years. People were going on this year. There's going to be an iPhone, the Apple phone coming out. And 10 years later, it finally came out. But I would be surprised if they would have an Apple Pencil on a phone, because they've been strongly been against, it's a touch device, it's a finger device, and they've been very strongly about that. I wonder if that changes with a foldable device. I'd be interested. Yeah. Personally, I'm not sure. I think the bigger screens, portable bigger screens, great. The one thing that I've always been sort of dismissive of the current foldables is that crease. I mean, I'm sorry. Yep. If Apple has a crease, I will find it shameful. So there cannot be a crease on that phone.
Right, and it's a big challenge, and they're making progress, but how close they are, I have no idea. It could just be smoke. But and we had visitors on campus a little over a week ago, international, and one of them took out their foldable Samsung and they put it down, and they just started I was like, that would be really convenient to not have to drag yet another device just for note taking if you wanted to mark up something quickly or just jot down some handwritten notes. So we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be $2,500 at least.
Yeah. And look at me still using paper notebooks too. So they old technology still works. So Matthias, first of all, thank you so much for creating Forever Notes. I will tell you, it has been life-changing for me, and I don't say that lightly. It really is a great system. And so thank you. I really appreciate it. Continue to use it every day and continue to, make it a part of my daily workflow, which is amazing. Second of all, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for letting me speak about it. Hopefully in a way that people understand. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. And tell us all the places we can find you.
So the main resources are on myforevernotes.com. You've got the user forum there. You've got the documentation there. You've got the information about the workshop. On YouTube, it's also myforevernotes at myforevernotes.com. myforevernotes, sorry. Also on Threads and on Blue Sky. I'm not very active on Instagram, but if you would like to subscribe on Instagram, do that.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I think that's us for the day. And again, thanks so much. Really nice to meet you in person. You from Vienna, me from someplace in New York, Tom from Virginia. But this is really amazing. And thank you.
Thank you.
Tommy, anything else?
No. You want to do the closing credits quickly and we'll wrap it up?
Yeah. So show music, the inimitable Celsius 7 Psychokinetics, and our lovely logo from Randall Martin Design. We hope you check them out and that you check out the episode with Celsius 7 that we did a few weeks back.
Indeed. So that is it. Matthias, as Jeff said, thank you so much. We appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. We hope you come back. We'd love to have you back sometime. Dear listeners, thank you for being here and spending time with us. And until next time, we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks. So do take care.
See ya.
I don't want to know about your imperfections, dude.